endurance racing is in a really good place, but I think bringing the NASCAR Garage for 6 car to Le Mans, it added something. And, all the memes, all the social media hits on it, I mean, it's gone nuts. It's probably the most watched car at Le Mans. It just puts a smile on people's faces.
Welcome to the Donut Racing Show, where we bring a big, loud, absolutely ripping American V8 NASCAR Chevy Camaro mindset to the petite, polite, and I quote, bring back the V8's podium of Formula One racing. My name is Nolan Sykes. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, my favorite auto journalists, Elizabeth Blackstock.
Good morning.
And Alanis King.
Hi, and this week we have got a super exciting change up to the DRS format. We're doing something different, and it is our first interview with Formula One champion Jenson Button. Okay. What? Oh, Nolan can't believe it. Nolan is shocked.
This is crazy. Big thank you to our sponsor this week, Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, whenever you want it, from a community of local hosts across the U.S., U.K., Canada, and Australia. Find your drive. Forget boring rental cars at Turo.com. Thank you very much, Turo. Before we talk to Jenson Button, which I'm super stoked to do, I can't believe we're getting to do that, we're going to give you a little historical rundown of Le Mans itself and Formula One drivers running the race. That's right, this is a Formula One show. The 24 hours of Le Mans is quite literally that. Of course, if you don't know, I don't know how you don't know, but it's a 24-hour race in the lovely countryside of Le Mans, France. It's one of those races that everyone has wanted to contest, and that includes Formula One drivers and this podcast host right here.
Yeah. We'll get you in there, Nolan.
Gentleman driver.
That's right. I'm going to crash an LMP3 car, turn 1, lap 1. Yeah.
It's a rite of passage. The first running of Le Mans took place back in 1923, which was about 27 years before Formula One actually became a championship. Back then, Grand Prix racing existed as a concept. Racing was pretty much a sport for the rich at that point. So the same guys who could afford to buy a Grand Prix car were also pretty likely to expand their horizons and get into endurance racing. At the time, too, the cars in different disciplines weren't as distinct and specialized as they are now. So it was possible to transfer similar racecraft skills to different cars.
But as the F1 championship evolved in 1950, F1 drivers were still taking part since the racing schedules for different series back then were a lot more sparse. If you wanted to make a career in motorsport, you couldn't really do that just running 9 races a year. So there was a good chance you'd be seeing your favorite F1 drivers taking on prestigious other events like Le Mans, the Monte Carlo Rally, or even the Mille Miglia.
We've seen plenty of F1 drivers, both former and current, win Le Mans, including people like Jochen Mass, Phil Hill, and Jackie Ickx. But when we talk about classic F1 drivers at Le Mans, there's really only one name we should focus on, and that's Graham Hill.
That's your dude.
He's my man. I love Graham Hill. He was the first and so far the only driver to complete the Triple Crown of Motorsport, which includes wins at the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
I kind of imagine Liz with all of her vintage drivers. You know how some people have like anime body pillows?
That's what Elizabeth has.
Do you have a Graham Hill body pillow?
I don't have a Graham Hill body pillow, but I do have a shocking amount of handmade things for dead guys.
Oh, no.
Great.
I have a little cross stitch of Jewel Bianchi.
Hey, I like that, though. A cross stitch, yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Wow.
That's
Okay. Well, sorry for the diversion there real quick. All right. Well, speaking of Graham Hill, we should get some Graham Hill body pillows going. We
should, Nolan. That's a great idea.
Some DRS merch costs like $180. We make like 40 of them. Anyway, okay. Graham Hill won Monaco in 1963, 64, 65, 68, and 69, and the Indy 500 in 1966. And he rounded everything out with his overall victory at Le Mans in 1972. Even in an era where competition crossover was common, Hill was the only one able to complete such a unique challenge. What a guy.
In the modern days, We have seen all kinds of F1 drivers go to Le Mans, whether they're far removed from their F1 careers or just really recently left the series. A famous example of this is a guy named Fernando Alonso.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, you might remember this guy actually retired from F1 after the 2018 season, and then he came kind of right back. He's currently third in the 2023 championship standings, the first driver behind the season-dominating Red Bulls. But when Fernando's career was winding down in 2018, he was exploring other racing series and events, including Le Mans. He ran Le Mans twice in 2018 and 2019. Both runs came with Toyota Gazoo Racing, and he won both times.
That's so cool.
This year, we had multiple F1 drivers in the field. These are former F1 drivers. So we had Antonio Giovinazzi, who actually won overall with Ferrari in the hypercar class. And we also had Jenson Button, who won the F1 World title in 2009 with his Braun GP team, and then went to Le Mans in the massive, huge, beautiful, loud NASCAR car. Jenson Button also owns the Radford car that just won at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb with Tanner Faust behind the wheel.
Yeah, that's right. And he turned right around from Pikes Peak to talk to us, which is super cool. Okay, let's bring him on. You can also check out the video version of this interview on our YouTube channel, Donut Podcast. So let's talk to Jenson. All right, Jenson. So we heard that you just picked your kids up from school. What's Jenson Button's school pickup vehicle of choice these days?
Well, I was dropping him off.
Oh, dropping him off. Yeah, that makes more sense, actually, this early in the morning.
It's 9 here in California. It's whatever's not blocked in at the moment. We've got a lot of work house. It's whatever I can take up the driveway. But my wife drives it. She's got a new G-Wagon, which has got roof rack and sporty tires. And it's more of an off-roady, like it should be used. Not that she has used it off yet, but that's normally a drop-off pickup car.
Are y'all adventurers?
No.
Okay.
But we like to pretend we are. One day we'll get it dirty and drive it off-road. We live near Calabasas, and sometimes the roads are dirty.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So
that's the entire attitude that drives the SUV segment in the U.S., so that's totally fine.
Never know what can happen. And it rained a few months ago as well.
You need...
Those puddles will get you.
You need SUVs and all-wheel drive for those puddles. We got to be safe. We got to see the road.
But the problem now that everyone drives such a big car that you have to drive a big car, especially here. That's the thing, because you don't want to get hit by a big car when you're in a little car. That's the way I think, especially with the kids on board.
That is so true. And before we talk about you driving a very big car at Le Mans, we wanted to give you a chance to talk about your Radford car won in its category at Pikes Peak. Can you tell us about it?
It did. Well, this is definitely not a big car. The Radford is a small car, and it's wonderful. It's a curvaceous car that started off as a road car. It's a Type 62-2 Radford, and we build 62 of them for 62 lucky clients. We got asked by one of our clients who's bought two cars to build a Pikes Peak version. So we've built a Pikes Peak version. It's much wider, a bit more power, roll cage and everything. And we raced it at Pikes Peak yesterday. And wow, the guys did an extremely good job. Tanner Faust was at the wheel, rather him than me. That looks like a route of 13 miles. He did it in 9 minutes 37. Wow. So it's extremely quick. Anything under 10 minutes is nuts. So the guy is really proud of them. We won our category, exhibition category, which is road cars that have been played around with a little bit for Pikes Peak. So so well done to the whole team and especially Tanner for driving up the mountain.
Yeah, how'd you get hooked up with Tanner Faust? Have you known him for a long time, or is this the first time you guys have worked together?
No, I've known him for a long time. He's very good friends with Radford, the whole crew, Anstead especially. I've known of Tanner for years. We've met at different races around the world. He's also racing in Extreme E at the moment with McLaren, and I have a team in Extreme E called JBXE. So there's that kind of connection as well. He's a competitor in that, but speaking to him after the hill climb, the excitement on his face and adrenaline, I think surviving the mountain is one thing. To get a win as well was, pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
We chatted a little at NASCAR at COTA, and you mentioned that you own the IP for John Player's special here in America. How did that come about? Because I saw that you had the Pikes Peak special car this weekend.
Yes. Well, we own the IP for JPS and also for Gold Leaf. Obviously, they were producing certain things 30, 40 years ago that we won't mention. But what I think most people think they're famous for is advertising on Formula One cars. And for me, it's the best livery out there. And we associate it with racing rather than the other thing. So, yes, we own the IP, and that's why you see our cars with the gold and black livery, because it's the most stunning and iconic livery in motorsport. And we just thought it fitted perfectly for the Pikes Peak car.
It looked so good.
Slick looking car.
That's a real flex, just buying the IP so you can have the livery on your own race car like that. I love that. That's so cool. Exactly.
Yeah. We sell it as a road car package as well. This is like the top of the range road car package, which I think 10 people have, well, they're all sold. There were 10 of them. So yeah, pretty cool.
Oh.
Very cool. Let's move on to Garage 56 here at Le Mans. What's it like to race in a race that you technically can't win? What's the mindset of the team in a situation like that?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. One, you can't win, but then there's also you can win because you can't lose. Mm-hmm. So you finish, you win your category. There's only one of one in our category. So there's no negatives. And, with the way that Hendrick Motorsport developed the car from a next-gen Cup car to a NASCAR Ferrari destroyer.
Yes.
I think they just did a mega job, first of all, of producing a car that could race against GTE cars. Obviously, the SRO, the governing body at Le Mans, they jumped in to control the pace of the car. So they slowed us down in some ways because they wanted us slower on the straight, quicker in the high-speed corners. And I think we achieved that really well. So fair play to the ACO for jumping in. They came to one of the tests and checked out the car when we were testing in Austin, made some adjustments. And we found ourselves in the middle of the GTE pack in the race and able to race with them, which was great fun.
Yeah, and it was super cool. And from my understanding, the Garage 56 car for NASCAR was kind of a way to show off the fact that this next-gen car, it can turn left and right, and it is designed to turn left and right instead of just left. Can you describe what this car feels like for you, someone who has turned left and right your whole career?
Well, there were three reasons for competing at Le Mans. One was because, Jim France is a massive fan of racing altogether, and he wants to take one of his cars to Le Mans and just race and to finish. The other one, we obviously wanted to beat all the GTE cars. But the most important one was to advertise NASCAR to a wider audience. And I knew before arriving, the way the car looked, the way the car felt, the way the car sounded, everyone was going to love it at Le Mans. It definitely added something to what is already a very special race. It was the 100th year of Le Mans as well. And hypercar category has just gone crazy. So endurance racing is in a really good place, but I think bringing the NASCAR Garage 56 car to Le Mans, it added something. And, all the memes, all the social media hits on it, I mean, it's gone nuts. It's probably the most watched car at Le Mans in 2023 because of the way it looks and the way it sounds. And it just puts a smile on people's faces. And I think that was the main aim for us going to Le Mans, to advertise NASCAR, and I think we did it in the best way possible.
And I was there, and I went all around the track, and every single time y'all went by, I don't know if anyone described this to you, but everyone pointed, woke up from whatever sleep they were in, and they were like, there it is again, and then they went back to sleep. Like that was what they did, because it was so much louder than every other car. And when I talked to Jimmy while I was there, Jimmy Johnson said, I haven't been able to soak that up yet because I've been so focused on driving, but I want to soak that up when the race is over. Do you feel like you've done that? How do you feel like you've soaked up the reception to it?
Yeah, well, the reason why it's so loud, one, because it's just a massive V8, but the exhaust, I mean, Cadillac has the same kind of engine, but the exhaust are out the back, whereas our exhaust go out the side. So it goes basically into the grandstands, the exhaust, which is super cool. And yeah, there was a lot of love for it. And it's a funny one. Yeah, I agree with Jimmy. When you're in the moment, it's awesome to see the car, but you're more looking at what position you're in and whether you're chasing the GTEs or whatever. But afterwards, yeah, when you really think about what we achieved and how much fun it was one of the most fun weekends I've ever had in motor racing. Working with people like Jimmy, who's a good friend and also has achieved so much in motorsport. Rocky, who's won Le Mans, won DTM. So no, it's been a weird few weeks because you look back and you think, wow, that was so cool, but you also miss it, knowing that you're never going to race that car on a track again. So kind of a weird feeling when something like that comes to an end. But as they say, all good things come to an end, and it has, which is a shame.
It seemed like y'all were having so much fun. And a question I had while watching was, you did your first Cup start this year in the NASCAR Cup Series at COTA, and it was super aggressive. How do you get used to driving against Cup Series drivers? Because you're about to do it again at the Chicago Street Course this weekend.
Yeah, so you actually asked me about how the car felt, but the Garage 56 car was... I went on to something else, but the Garage 56 car is just, it's a real pleasure to drive. You know, it's massive and you can feel the weight transfer, but it's very drivable and it's exactly what you need for a 24-hour race. So high speed, little bit of understeer, low speed, it's moving around, but it's doing what it should. You have traction control as well, which definitely saved us many times. But it was so much fun and easy to drive. Cup car, a little bit different. You have a bit more weight. The gas tank is right at the back. So if you do get oversteer, that pendulum effect is massive. And the way they run the Cup cars, they run them on the ground at the rear because they want the diffuser to be active. And the only way that it's working on this car is if it's on the deck. So they run the rear pretty solid and on the bump stop. So every bump you hit, bang, bang, bang. And then immediately the car snaps. So it's definitely a difficult car to drive, and utmost respect for the guys that have found confidence in driving the Cup car. It's a challenge, and we all have a challenge, and that's why I'm back to do more. But in Austin, yeah, I mean, I had 13 laps of practice and qualified 24th out of 39, which I was kind of pleasantly surprised with. The lap wasn't great in qualifying. You get one lap, really. But you get your head around a car. You can get your head around a racing car because that's what I've done my whole life. The bit that takes longer to get your head around is the way of racing. So every category I've raced in, the regulations are kind of similar. You know, you drive, you're aggressive, but you don't hit other cars. And if you do, you either get a penalty or you get damage. Whereas in the Cup Series, the cars are very stiff, don't really get much damage. And there's no regs in terms of you can hit people as hard as you want. So as long as you kind of say sorry, it's fine. So that took a long time to get used to, the aggression out on track. And also because you can hit people, there's a very different style of driving. So, for example, turn one, if somebody comes up the inside in normal racing, they would have to be at least halfway alongside. You'd see them, you wouldn't turn in because they're just going to hit you. Whereas in a Cup car, the guys all they have to do is go an inch of overlap with the rear of the car because they know you can't turn in because they'll just hit you. So you've got to get your head around that. So you spend a lot of the time with your spotters in your ear telling you where to put your car and where you can't put the car. And that's just so alien to people that don't race NASCAR. So it's a learning curve, but it also became fun. The first hour, I kind of regretted it a little bit, but then I got and I understood how aggressive I could be and get away with it. And then I really enjoyed it.
And I have one more follow-up on that because that's so fascinating. Not only do you have to learn that everyone else is going to be aggressive, but they've had their whole lives to learn how to be aggressive with each other. They know where to hit each other, when to hit each other to not ruin their own race. How do you balance that and maybe when you might have to hit someone else?
Yeah, and it's also tricky because I'm coming in and I'm doing 3 races. These guys are doing 39 races or 38 or however many it is. And if they have one bad race, they're like, oh, it's one bad race, and they move on to the next race. Whereas I only have 3, so if I crash in 3 races, I don't get any results. So there's definitely more pressure on me not to crash in a race. But yeah, I don't purposely go out and try and hit people in a racing car. That's never going to be my style. But if somebody pushes me off on purpose and I'm alongside them, I will definitely repay the favor, let's say. I'm down with that. And I did that a couple of times at COTA. But, looking forward to Chicago, we can't drive like we drove at COTA. You just can't, because we'll have a yellow flag every lap. Turn 1, if you turn some around at turn 1, the circuit is going to be blocked. So the race is stopped. So we do have to be a little bit more respectful of not just each other, but of the track. A street circuit is very different to racing at COTA, where you can just run off the track and come back on. Here you're in a wall, and you're probably going to back into oncoming traffic. So there has to be a different way of driving, and I hope everyone realizes that.
I was going to ask, actually, when you get there, you're going to be one of the many drivers who's never driven this track before at Chicago. Do you think that you're going to have a little bit of a benefit because you already know the rules of the road and can kind of respect those? Or do you think you're going to be kind of on the back foot with everyone else?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tricky for everyone to get used to a really bumpy track with these cars, because you think it's a big, heavy car, it should be able to take bumps. But no, I think actually a Formula One car would be able to take bumps better because of the way that the compliancy of the car, and the diffuser doesn't have to be on the ground to actually work. So yeah, I think it's going to be a big learning curve for everyone. I'm definitely not at a disadvantage, I would say. Yeah. These guys have raced these cars all year and last year, so I've done one race. So there's definitely a disadvantage there, but then I'm more used to racing street circuits than they are. So it will balance itself out, I think, a little bit.
Something I wanted to know, just as kind of like broad question throughout your whole career, what was the first race car you got into, and you were surprised by how fast it was? Can you describe that feeling?
Weirdly enough, it would be a Formula One car. And the reason obviously it's a Formula One car, but, all the categories before Formula One, nothing felt quick after karting. So I raced go-karts from the age of 8 to 17, and, your bum's on the ground, basically. You're hitting the ground the whole time. The karts have 30, 35 horsepower. They're pretty quick. They'll do 75, 80 mile an hour. And the racing is just ferocious. So you get into Formula Ford, which is what I did next, and it didn't feel quick, and the car wouldn't stop. It felt heavy. And the same thing in F3. And then when I got into an F1 car, that's the first time I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is what power is. I remember I drove a McLaren. It was a young driver test that I won. As in, I won the seat to do the test. And I did 12 laps at Silverstone in this car, and I remember getting on the back straight and accelerating and just like, holy wow, this is nuts. And I was also amazed at how much the car did for you. So, you just had confidence in it immediately. The braking on it was insane. The high speed corners, how you could carry speed. It felt like you could be reasonably quick on day one. But then it's finding the last half a second that's difficult. And that's really, really difficult to find that half a second. You go and drive a cup car and you can be a second and a half, 2 seconds off. I think you did a good job. So it's a very different learning curve. And an F1 car has a lot of things that help you to drive.
I think that's something, a criticism that gets brought up a lot, I guess, of newer drivers is like, oh, that takes them a long time to get used to a car. But I guess like these days with the cars being so advanced with all the different systems on board and how heavy they are compared to the older cars now, does it take longer for a new driver to get used to a Formula One car in these current gen cars?
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult because I've only raced one of the big cars, if you like, in 2017. But the thing is now there's so much information for the drivers to take on board, which is positive in some ways, it's negative in others because it just fills your head with info.
Might be an overload.
Yeah, it is. When I was racing, big part of my career, for me, my strength was looking after the car, saving fuel where I needed to. I'd have a fuel number, and then I would look after the tires, because I knew at the end of the stint, if I looked after them, I would be able to put in some really good lap times, and over from A to B, I would be quicker than my teammate. And that was all just feeling what the car's doing. Whereas now they get fed all the information.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as they come out, for guys leading after lap one, they'll go, right, we need to do this to look after the tires, and it'll just sit at a certain lap time to look after the tires, and they won't ever pull out a big lead. It's very different way of racing. If you win a race, you win a race. It doesn't really matter. But for me, it was more fun learning while you were going as you were driving, and not learning it from a simulation.
And we have made our way to the absolutely goofy segment of the interview, where I ask, you live in America now. What is your favorite chain restaurant?
My favorite chain restaurant? Well, as my crew chief, Booger knows, it's Five Guys.
Oh,
that's a good choice.
Good choice, yes.
I was in the simulator last week at SHR. Well, not at SHR, at Ford. And we had Five Guys. And I am in the simulator again tomorrow, and we will have Five Guys for lunch.
I love that. And you said earlier, you're not really going to get to run the Garage 56 car again in an environment like Le Mans, like you did the first time. But it is going to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, right?
Yes. So the Goodwood Festival of Speed is July 15th, no, 14th to the 7th, something like that, of July, around that time. And I'm going to be there for 3 days. And the NASCAR Garage 56 car will be going up the hill. So it's more of like a showpiece, the Festival of Speed, for people that don't know. It's the biggest, I think it's the biggest car event in the world, though. It's nuts. And you can drive slowly up the hill, or you can drive as fast as you want up the hill, which is great, with 100,000 plus spectators each day. So, yes, I'll be driving the NASCAR Garage 56 car up the hill, doing some burnouts, hopefully. I'm also driving the Radford.
That's so exciting.
That'll be fun.
So there's a time trial on the Sunday, and I'm racing the Pikes Peak in the time trial, which is a little scary, but it should be cool. I'm also racing or driving a Lotus Evija, which is the 2,000 horsepower Lotus.
Oh, very cool.
Electric one. And then I'm also driving an old Williams Formula One car.
Oh, you got a good lineup there.
Very busy.
You are going to be ripping.
I just got busy. Very busy, but it'll be cool when the family are coming as well. So Brittany and our two kids, Hendricks and Lenny. So it should be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I have a photo here that I've shared to the chat. It makes the rounds on Formula One Twitter every now and then. I don't know if you've seen this photo for a while, but it's of you and a young Fernando Alonso sitting on the 2002 Renault car. Jenson, you're wearing you got a leather jacket on. You got what looks like some chinos or slacks and flip flops. And Fernando is wearing what looks like from a Matrix sequel kind of leather vest and khakis and also flip flops. Could you give us any sort of? I've never had any context for this photo. It looks like some sort of press event. Do you remember this event? Could you give us some context for the event and your outfits at this event?
We look cool. That's all I have to say.
You do look cool.
That's incredible.
Very fashionable. I look like I'm out of Jumanji or something.
And then we have, if you would like to stay an extra 2 minutes, we have a wonderful segment if you would like to participate in it.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, Nolan,
Excellent.
Tell us what it is.
Yes, it's time for Boyfriend of the Week. Jenson, since you're a guest, I will explain the rules of Boyfriend of the Week. It is our recurring segment where we acknowledge who's the best. Okay, it can be anybody. It can be a driver, a car, a moment, somebody online with a hot take. Just over the week. It's also middle school rules. It's primary school rules. This is our boyfriend just for 1 week only until next week, where we choose a new boyfriend.
Okay.
And Jenson, you can even pick yourself. You are a candidate here. You can pick whomever you would like.
Awesome.
It's up to you. And I guess we can go first for some examples.
So Jenson gets an idea of the segment, and then he can go last.
Right now.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go first. So my boyfriend of the week is a wonderful woman named Diane. She is friends with Denny Hamlin's mom, Mary Lou Hamlin. And I was at a concert before the Nashville Superspeedway NASCAR race this weekend. It was an Old Dominion concert, and I was kind of just hanging back, right? And there was an open place on the railing in front of Diane and Mary Lou, who were sitting at a table. And Diane comes over to me and she goes, "Come stand in front of me. Come watch the concert. I want you to see it." And I end up talking to her for the whole night. And I didn't recognize, because I hadn't seen Mary Lou in about 10 years, I didn't recognize her at first. And Diane goes, "Do you know the driver of the 11 car?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's actually like my friend. We're internet friends." And she was like, "This is his mom. We've been friends for 35 years. We hung out the whole night. We had the best time. I saw them the next day at the race, and I went and I found Denny, and I said, 'I'm now best friends with your mom.'" And Denny was like, "Oh no." And we had a great time, all thanks to Diane. Diane, we love you. You're my boyfriend of the week.
Shout out to Diane.
Shout out Diane.
Super cool. How lovely.
Thank you, Jenson. Nolan, you want to go?
Sure, yeah. Mine is kind of a Time Magazine, everyone is the person of the year. Everyone is the boyfriend of the week this week. Everyone who's played the Donut Media expansion for Forza Horizon 5, everyone who's, tagged me in pics, tagged us in pics, sent us pictures of them playing the game, screenshots of high and low car. You are my boyfriend of the week. Thank you very much for supporting the game and supporting us. And thank you. Liz.
Thank you.
My boyfriend of the week is Ryan Reynolds' Mint Mobile money, because that meant that he got to buy a 24% stake in Alpine, which is that's cool. That's cool. If I had that much money, I would also invest in a Formula One team. Probably not Alpine, probably something else, but
Jenson, you have had about 1 minute to prepare your boyfriend of the week. Who is your boyfriend of the week?
Of the week, I haven't met anyone this week, so that's not the best. That's dad life. It's been busy. Yesterday was pretty awesome.
Okay.
From a dad's point of view, we went to a car show. Mm-hmm. With our kids, so Brittany and the two kids, and it's just like a cars and coffee. And we went along, and there was a little car stand where they sold, kids' toys and what have you. And the lovely man there, I don't know his name, the lovely man at the kids' toy stand said to our kids, "You can have a toy for free," which is in a little box on the floor, so mini little toys. So you can have a toy for free. And I just thought that was so lovely. We live in the countryside now, and I don't think we would have had that if we lived in LA. But we just thought that was so sweet. And then we got in the car, felt very happy, and we went down the road, and my wife said, "Oh, there's like a market on. I would like to go and see. There's lots of old stuff." She loves old stuff, antiques and what have you. So we went in there, and we walked past this guy that had jewelry, and he had these necklaces hanging up at the front, and he said, "They're free for kids, so kids can take a necklace free."
Oh my gosh.
Where am I? Amazing. And it just thought that was so sweet. And hats off to those guys that just are doing something very nice for their community and making kids feel very special.
What a wholesome boyfriend of the week. Thank you so much, Jenson. You're wonderful. Have a great day. We will see you around.
See you in Chicago.
Bye.
Bye.
Big thank you to our sponsor this week, an app I've used a lot in the past. It's called Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, whenever you want it, from a community of local hosts. You browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits your everyday lifestyle. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. I've used Turo a lot in the past. All of us at Donut have booked a car through Turo. That is no BS. We really like it. I love Turo. Find your drive. Forget boring rental cars at Turo.com.
One last thing before we go. Coming up this weekend, we have the Austrian Grand Prix, one of my personal favorites. So that means you got to lace up those tennies, get that step count up, because it is time for our track walk.
The original Österreich Ring was built in 1969 as a replacement for the Zeltweg airfield circuit. But the track we know today was crafted from 1995 to 1996 after legendary designer Hermann Tilke was hired to turn the ring into a shorter and more modern track. The result was the A1 Ring, which opened in 1996 and hosted its first Formula One race the following year, though the Grand Prix has been hosted at the facility, or in the vicinity rather, since 1970. So pretty good history for Austria and F1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In 2004, Red Bull owner Dietrich Mateschitz bought the circuit and renamed it predictably to the Red Bull Ring. He was born less than 40 miles from the circuit, so it's not hard to imagine that this was kind of like a childhood dream realized. The circuit itself is 2.68 miles, yet it feels smaller, and it's set in the natural bowl of the Styrian Mountains.
That makes up our track walk. I love Austria. It was the first European Grand Prix I actually went to, so it has like a special place in my heart. But for anyone who goes, just get general admission. You can sit on the side of a mountain and literally see the whole track.
It always looks so majestic on camera, and I think it's kind of a track that gets a little overlooked sometimes in like the pantheon of legendary circuits or whatever. But anytime I watch this on TV, I'm like, I want to sit on the mountain. You know, there's like little wildflowers around there. You're just sitting in like a meadow watching these cars go around. And the layout itself is also pretty cool.
My favorite part of the track is the giant bull statue.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that thing's sick. Yeah.
Yes.
No, he's beefy. There are also a ton of track cats just wandering around. So when I was there, we like hunted down all the track cats and got a little photo album of them.
I do feel like Barber Motorsport Park in Alabama is trying to capture the Red Bull statue, the bull statue, a little bit with their giant spider in the middle of the track, but it doesn't quite hit the same way. Man, I'm really looking forward to this race. I feel like I've come to appreciate this race so much more since 2020 when we had that first double header weekend.
Yeah, the season opener there.
The season opener where the teams were just hanging out in Austria for like 2 weeks. Since then, I've really come to enjoy this track a lot more for whatever reason. Yeah, great track. Would love to visit. And you know what? I'll put it on my list.
Thank you so much for listening to the Donut Racing Show. We'll be back next week to talk about the Austrian Grand Prix. But because it's a holiday in the U.S., the holiday, you might say, we'll have a late release and a late record. So we will be out on Thursday, not Wednesday of next week. We apologize.
Yeah, I like to take some time off and drink some beers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, also, thank you so much to Jenson Button and Jenson's team for setting up that interview. It was super cool to talk to Jenson, a real-life F1 driver. And I mean, that's something we didn't even cover in the interview. He was in the sport for 17 years, which is kind of like a crazy stat to have in Formula One. That's a long time, man. So thank you so much, Jenson, for being on the show. Also, for you guys, make sure to subscribe and tell all your friends to tune into the Donut Racing Show. If you want us, and if you want to leave us a 5-star and kindly worded review, it really helps us out. We have some listener mail this week. Alanis, you want to read this?
Oh, I would love to read this because it's about me. Okay. Hey, Nolan, Elizabeth, and Alanis. I just wanted to point out that when Alanis says hi at the beginning of the episodes, she sounds just like one of Kirby's taunts from the old Super Smash Brothers games. LOL. I put a link so you can compare. Keep it up. Love the show. Mitch C. Mitch, I have actually heard this from no less than 10 people, and I love it every single time. And everyone always sends me a link. They're always just like, I'm going to put a link just so you know. And they link the same video.
So funny.
That's just like that little sound. And it's amazing. And that's actually like when people started sending me that, I was like, well, I can't stop now.
Yeah. No, you can't.
I have to even get closer to this sound now.
If there's a video game character you should emulate, Kirby is a pretty good choice.
Totally agree.
Love that. A Kirby tattoo would actually be pretty sick now that I think about it. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Mitch.
If you're not familiar with Donut, we have a YouTube channel as well as an automotive history podcast called Pass Gas. Go check those out. And if you wanted to see the video interview with Jenson Button, that'll be on our Donut Podcast YouTube page.
Yes.
You can follow DRS on Twitter at Donut Racing Show and email us at donutracingshow@donutmedia.com. We might just read your email on air. You can follow Alanis at Alanis N King on Twitter and Instagram. Nolan is Nolan J. Sykes on both. And I am Eliz Blackstock on Twitter and Elize Blackstock on Instagram.
Bye.